UpTake here on AM 950 KTNF. Here's your host, Mike McEntee.
Hey, thank you, Marty. The field is thinning in the governor's race, at least on the DFL side. Chris Coleman, mayor of St. Paul, said today that he would like to remain being mayor.
You can have a tremendous impact as mayor of the city of St. Paul. I think that I have. But sometimes it's the impact that you don't see that's the most important.
Now, that wasn't today. That was him a couple nights ago. But that was the sentiment that he was expressing today when he decided he is going to pull himself out of the race for governor. We'll be talking to the mayor himself at 5:30 here, so please stick around. It's a long version of the Quick on the UpTake show today, no capital voice. And we will also be checking in with Grace Kelly, who has been following the governor's race, and see what the impact of Chris Coleman pulling out will have on the entire race. So that's up ahead on the show. But first on the show, we wanted to delve into a topic that we have touched on many times around here, and that's mental health. And joining me right now is Maureen Marrin, who is the Executive Director of the Mental Health Consumer Survivor Network of Minnesota. Maureen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
This is, I believe, National Mental Health Awareness Week, correct?
That is right.
And right now, mental health care in Minnesota is facing a little bit of a fiscal crisis. And why is that?
Well, it's a major fiscal crisis, primarily due to the unallotments of GAMC. There's approximately 35,000 adults on GAMC, and about at least a third of them have a mental health diagnosis. So when they lose their general assistance medical coverage, they will also lose access to services for their mental health care.
Now, is this something that's happening right now, is going to be happening soon, or what is the situation?
The unallotment has happened. GMC will be eliminated April 1st, 2010.
Okay, and is there any way that the program can be saved at this point?
Well, there's lots of groups, advocacy organizations that are having discussions all the time in terms of how can we save GAMC, how can we provide other services access, how maybe use Minnesota Care, medical assistance, but there isn't any definitive plan yet on what to do with folks that will be losing coverage.
Now, I believe, didn't Hennepin County or Minneapolis take some action where they are going to be actually taking some of the local tax base and trying to essentially fill the hole that was GAMC?
Yeah, that is my understanding. I wasn't involved in those detailed discussions, so I'm not aware of how all that works, so I won't speak to that specifically.
Okay,
because I don't want to mislead anybody.
No, I wouldn't want to mislead anybody either, but it's obvious that everybody is across the state here is going to feel the impact of cutting back the GAMC program, and as you pointed out, specifically that's going to fall heavy on the people who are in need of mental health care. Let's talk.
Yes, it's the GMC is a program that's covered the poorest people and generally the people with highest needs also.
Now, your group, Mental Health Consumer Survivor Network, how does it work with a lot of people who are in that category of needing mental health care?
Well, we are not a typical direct service organization. We are a consumer organization, the only one in the state, and by that I mean that all of us that work for the Consumer Survivor Network and our board of directors are made up of people that identify as having a psychiatric diagnosis. So although we do not provide any direct clinical services, we provide a lot of peer-to-peer support services around phone support, which we call warm lines, around a program called WRAP, Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And we also are implementing a certified peer specialist program. The other thing that we do that hopefully helps people understand what their services are is do a lot of systems advocacy piece and are at the tables where policy decisions are made that impact the lives of people with mental health diagnosis.
Right now, people who are dealing with mental health problems, how large of a portion of the population does that make up? I mean, not just people who are dealing with the current problem, but who have suffered through having depression or other types of mental problems.
Statistically, generally, the accepted statistics are 1 in 5 individuals and 1 in 4 families at some point in their life deal with a mental health diagnosis.
So it is very likely
So a lot of people.
it's very likely that anybody who's listening to this program knows somebody who is either going through a problem like this or has or will in the future.
It's absolutely likely that somebody has a direct family member, a coworker, a neighbor that has or is dealing with mental health issues, yes.
What is, for those of us who want to help out, who want to make sure that we continue to take care of this part of the portion of the population, that we continue to take care of these issues, what is the best way for us to help out?
You know, one of the best ways, and things like mental health, or actually it's called Mental Illness Awareness Week, I think are really great opportunities in which all of us can take responsibility and understanding what we know about, what we think we know about people with mental illness and what we think we know about mental health. I think one of the most important things we all can do, and that means those of us with mental health diagnosis and those of us without it, is understand that there is mental health even with the existence of mental illness. And so I think that education piece is really, really imperative, and understanding that people with mental health diagnosis are really not any different from anybody else with, quote, issues. And some of the misperceptions that are pervasive in our society around people with mental health diagnosis being dangerous or being never able to get well, not being able to work, all those kinds of things. I think it's on all of our shoulders as individuals to understand what the myths are around mental health diagnosis.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. People who suffer from, let's say, depression, or depression being, I think, maybe one of the more common mental health. I'm looking. Illness is the correct word, correct? Mental health illness that we're dealing with. People who suffer from depression, do most of them get better and lead a normal life?
Absolutely, and depression is an incredibly treatable disease. One of the problems with mental health diagnosis is there's so many people that do not pursue treatment, and a lot of that is due to the stigma and people being afraid that what is my neighbor going to think, what is my employer going to think, my coworker, etc., if they know that I'm dealing with some sort of mental health diagnosis, which is really sad because depression, bipolar, sometimes known as manic depression, are incredibly treatable diseases, and people can treat them and live absolutely happy and productive lives, and we do all the time.
Well, let's talk about the stigma, because I think that is the core of a lot of people's hesitation to seek help. What can we do, and I say we being you, me, and anybody else listening to this program, to help remove the stigma from mental health, because it is, or mental illness, because it is no different than having, some sort of something go wrong with your liver or something go wrong with your heart. It's not something that we as an individual can control.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, Mike, because I think that's part of the stigma, is that we think mental health diagnosis or having a mental illness is a character issue. And I think, so that's one of the things, again, that we talked about a few minutes ago that's really important to do, is educate ourselves on that this isn't something that we ask for. This isn't about bad character or bad personality. It is exactly like having diabetes or a heart disease or anything else, and it is treatable, and it doesn't mean we're bad people or scary people. And that's part of the piece that we have to do. And I think that part of it is that there's a lot of attention always given to if for example, if somebody with a mental health diagnosis commits a crime or is violent. And so we tend to pay a lot of attention to a lot of those really extreme stories. And there's all sorts of stories every day, all day, about people living happy and productive lives that also have a mental illness, and we don't give that any attention. So I think that that's part of what we need to do to help fight the stigma. And
I think another thing is people tend to look at, more and more people are being diagnosed with depression. It's just doctors trying to give people more pills. But isn't it really that we're uncovering that a lot of things that have been wrong with folks, or that may have been defined as you say, character issues, are really a mental illness that needs to be treated?
Yeah, and can be treated. And I think that historically that's been part of the part of what has been in people's way is this fear that this is a character issue, and I should just, quote, pull ourselves up from the bootstraps. And, feeling down is different than being depressed, and it is treatable. And so I think that, with the advent of better diagnostic tools, better medication, we are uncovering that people were struggling in ways that they don't have to anymore. So.
Well, again, this is National Mental Illness Awareness Week, and you are asking people to take a specific action here this week. Let's just go over that again. You're working with other organizations to restore GAMC, and what are you suggesting people do?
Call their representatives and tell them how important GAMC is, how much they, as their constituents, want that program to stay, and how helpful it is to many, many people that need it, and that there isn't an option for folks at this point. If GAMC goes away today, there is nothing for these folks, and a lot of people are going to suffer unnecessarily because of that.
All right, Maureen Marrin, with the Executive Director of the Mental Health Consumer Survivor Network, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a break and continue on this topic. We'll be talking with NAMI, that is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, with Sue Abderholden right after this break. You're listening to Quick on the Uptake.
The Dakota tradition of helping others is alive and well at the Shakopee Midwauketon Sioux community in Prior Lake, Minnesota, with charitable giving of more than $132 million over the last 11 years. In 2008, 15 Native American tribes each received $1 million grants from the Shakopee Midwauketon Sioux community. Among the recipients were the Kiowa Tribe of Oklahoma and the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas. The Kiowa Tribe of Oklahoma used their $1 million SMSC grant to purchase Indian City, USA Cultural Center, which serves as a vast outdoor museum to provide visitors with a historically accurate series of reconstructed American Indian villages. And the Kickapoo Tribe of Kansas funded a new administrative center to house the tribal government. The new 26,000 square foot facility will provide a centralized building with all major tribal departments under one roof. The tradition of helping others is alive and well at the Shakopee Midwauketon Sioux community. For more information, go to shakopeedakota.org.
Hi, this is Dr. David Scusa from the Big Brain Radio Show, where the majesty of life is revealed. On the Big Brain Radio Show, we have a portion called Stuff That Works. And stuff that works is stuff that works every time without a lot of effort, but you can count on it. Like how to know what to do when you need to do it, how to have service show up in your life, how to have production show up in your life, how to have the magic of the mystery of the things you've wanted all your life show up for you. Listen to the Big Brain Radio Show every Saturday at 11 o'clock.
I'm a new breed of Minnesotan, a Minnesota locavore. That means I eat fresh and local foods. It's good for me. It's good for Minnesota. It's just plain good.
Be a locavore. It's easy at the Minneapolis Farmers Market, where hundreds of farmers bring the best of the country to the heart of the city. Fresh air, fresh food, fresh flavors, fresh taste. Minneapolis Farmers Market, Minnesota's fresh pick. Open 7 days a week at Lyndale and Highway 55 in Minneapolis.
Here's a quick look at your weather forecast from the AM 950 Weather Center. Tonight, mostly cloudy and 34. Tomorrow, Friday, sunny and 50. Tomorrow night, a 40% chance of snow, mostly cloudy and 31. Saturday, a 40% chance of snow, mostly cloudy and 39. That's been a quick look at your weather forecast from the AM 950 Weather Center. AM 950 KTNF, the voice of Minnesota.
Here's the latest look at traffic brought to you by Toyota Parts and Service. Southbound 35W just before 3rd Street, they got an accident with the left 2 lanes shut down. That area really backing down up. There's still an accident southbound at Franklin as well. 35 southbound at the Forest Lake Split, looking at a crash from earlier. That's off to the side. And northbound 494, still got a crash sitting on the left shoulder at 394. Toyota owners through October, visit your participating Toyota dealer for great tire specials this fall. Buy 3 tires, get the 4th one for just $1. Toyota's quality saves you money.
It's a bright, sunny afternoon in Minnesota, absolutely wonderful weather, and you look out the window and wonder, how could somebody be sitting in bed right now saying, I can't get up, I can't get up, I can't get up and face the world right now? It's true, it happens, and it happens to a lot of folks. It's depression. It is one of many mental illnesses that are treatable these days, and this is National Mental Illness Awareness Week, and we are chatting right now with Sue Abderholden, who is the Executive Director of NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Sue, welcome to the program.
Thanks for inviting me.
I was mentioning depression, but there are all sorts of mental illnesses that are treatable and that you folks deal with. Tell us a little bit what NAMI does.
Well, NAMI works to improve the lives of both children and adults with mental illnesses and their families. And we do that by providing over 6 free education classes, over 45 support groups, and we have a helpline, and we do a lot of legislative advocacy as well. And one thing I think it's important to note is that we're not a direct, mental health provider. We don't have mental health professionals on staff. Nearly all of our staff and board members either have a mental illness or have a family member. So we really believe in that peer-to-peer approach.
So your group is more of an advocacy and lobbying group? Is that maybe one way of putting it?
Well, and making sure, because the stigma surrounding mental illness is so great, people don't really talk about it or share information. So, it's not like at lunch you ask your coworker, I think my son is developing bipolar disorder. Do you know a good psychologist or psychiatrist? People just don't know much about mental illness. So through our free classes, people can learn about mental illness, they can learn about treatment options, and then they're better able to help their loved one. And through a support group, whether it's a family support group or a support group for adults who are living with a mental illness, they can hear from each other about, what works, what's helped them, and kind of support them, each other on their recovery. So that's a big part of what we do, along with legislative advocacy.
Do you find that it's very often the family members that will want to approach and get information to bring it to the person who's affected, or is it generally the person that's affected realizes that they have a problem and is seeking help?
Well, sometimes it's a little bit of both, but sometimes the family members can really be kind of the canary in the coal mine. They'll recognize, maybe some subtle differences or changes in the person, which might raise some concern on their part.
Now, earlier we were talking with Maureen Marrin, who's with the Mental Health Consumer Survivor Network. They are very concerned about the GAMC disappearing in April. Is that impacting your folks as well?
Absolutely, and Maureen and I work very closely together. Really, over 70% of the people who are in general assistance medical care have a mental illness, chemical dependency, or both. And so they use that, it's a health care program. They use that to pay for their medications and for treatment if they need to be hospitalized. And so we really are concerned about what happens when that's not available. And I think if you talk to any sheriff or, jail director in the state, they will all say that they're very worried that if that goes away, that they will see more people with untreated mental illness in their jails.
Yeah, and that is... it is much more expensive to keep somebody in jail than it is to treat their mental illness, I assume.
Well, and it's, in some ways it's not just about, the cost, because jail, of course, is going to be cheaper than a hospital.
Right.
But it's also not well-used money. It's not very effective,
well,
because the mental illness isn't going away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not being treated. And so, what you get then is a revolving door into the jail. They go into the jail because of their symptoms, from their untreated mental illness. They're in the jail for a while. They get let out. They're not hooked up to treatment or services. They come back in. And that's what really kind of creates the long-term costs, and frankly, ineffective at that.
And not only do we have those kind of costs, but you also have the opportunity cost that of somebody who returned to being a productive member of society, and with treatment. Because my assumption is that most of the mental illnesses that we are dealing with these days aren't a large portion of them treatable.
I would say all of them are. I think some, like any illnesses, you have some forms of depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia that just, aren't receptive to treatment. They're not responsive to it, and that's always hard to predict. Like cancer, we all know people who get treatment and do fine and others where they don't. And, of course, the same is going to be true in mental illness as well. But generally, treatment is extremely effective, and people can really live very, normal, wonderful lives in the community.
Well, let's say somebody feels like a loved one may need help. Where would they turn? Would they find a support group through NAMI, or how would they do that?
They can certainly start out there or attend one of our classes. Often, what we suggest, too, is that people, talk to the person, and again, that you frame it as you would any other illness. Whether you'd say, I notice you're drinking a lot of water, could you possibly have diabetes, or, you're short of breath, are you sure you're okay? So to really frame it as you would any other healthcare condition, and encourage someone to see their physician. If they have a family practice physician or, someone like that, maybe to call ahead to say you're concerned about the person and here's what you're seeing. I think that part is really important.
Now,
but the most important thing, there's kind of a little factoid out there, and that is that people live with their symptoms an average of 10 years before seeking treatment.
Wow.
And if you think about that, that's an incredibly long period of time where people just aren't feeling well at all, and that's a lot of wasted years.
One other barrier to seeking treatment, I think, may be people thinking that it costs a lot. And I seem to remember that we had a bill passed with Senator Paul Wellstone's name on it that was supposed to take and put mental illness on, make sure that insurance companies covered mental illness. Has that happened now? Are insurance companies covering that?
Well, actually, what the bill does, and it was passed, just a year ago, and will go into effect in a couple of months. The problem, though, is that Mental Health Parity Act, and it includes substance abuse, what it does is it requires self-insured companies. So, most of if you're working for a small employer, in Minnesota, that's probably not a self-insured plan. And we have a good, state parity law. But it doesn't actually require coverage of mental health treatment. What it says is that if you cover mental health treatment, then you have to cover it in the same way as you do other health care conditions. So that would include, number of visits, percentage of costs that you pay in the hospital, that type of thing, lifetime limits, all of those types of things. So it doesn't actually require insurance companies to cover mental health treatment.
But it does.
So we still may see some people who don't have coverage.
Okay, so that is still an issue. That's still an issue for people.
That is still an issue, although people should know that we have in Minnesota what are called community mental health centers, and they do offer sliding fee. And so, if their insurance doesn't cover it, they should certainly feel free to go to their community mental health center to obtain mental health treatment.
Well, it's good to know that there's a place to turn, that there are places that you can start to get information about mental illness, especially when you are just facing it and you or a family member and you don't quite know where to go. Can you tell us once again how to get in touch with NAMI?
Sure. Our website is simply www.namihelps.org, and we have a toll-free number, and it's 888-NAMI-HELPS.
All right. We have been speaking with Sue Abderholden, from the Executive Director of NAMI, that is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the governor's race. We have one less candidate. We'll tell you more about that in just a couple of minutes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kathy Fields, co-creator of Proactive Solution. What if I told you I could make your acne disappear and give you a healthy-looking complexion? With all the acne promises out there, you're skeptical. So I'm going to prove it to you by sending you a risk-free 60-day trial of Proactive Solution, the revolutionary acne-fighting system.
To get your risk-free 60-day trial of Proactive Solution, just call 1-800-428-4523 and you'll become a believer. 1-800-428-4523. Call now.
Unpredictable, thought-provoking, humorous, and educational.
It's the Radio Cafe, and you can take this cafe wherever you go. It's topical, political, informational, and fun. It's like a good conversation at your favorite coffee shop. And each week we'll feature the Hypocrisy of the Week, we'll play Fact or Fear, and weekly Minnesota trivia during Your Guess is as Good as Mine. Your calls are always welcome and the coffee's always on at the Radio Cafe.
Saturdays at 2 on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota.
At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, you'll find the Twin Cities' most diverse selection of stoves and fireplaces. Gas or wood burning, indoors or outdoors, for heating or cooking, the warmth, the beauty, the joy of a fire is fun. The knowledgeable staff at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces would like to work together with you and to focus on that fire, to focus on how it looks, how it works, and how it impacts the indoor and outdoor environment. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces installs with award-winning service. They understand and embrace green design and function. You can enjoy a fire that is right for you, right for your home, and right for the environment. The folks at Woodland will explain the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which includes a 30% consumer tax credit, up to $1,500 on high-efficiency wood-burning stoves and fireplaces. This credit includes installation labor, chimney venting, and hearth components. On the web at woodlandstoves.com, or better yet, visit the store at the corner of Riverside and East Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, skilled sales and service of a diverse selection of out-of-the-ordinary fireplace products since 1977.
Here's the latest from the AM 950 KTNF Newsroom. I'm Al Verdi. This report is sponsored by Carfax. St. Paul Mayor Chris Coleman announced this afternoon that he does not plan to run for governor in 2010, saying instead that he's going to concentrate on the business of St. Paul. The Star Tribune says Coleman made the decision this morning after considering whether he could do the city's work and run for governor at the same time. Over the next few weeks, more H1N1 vaccine is expected to arrive in Minnesota. Counties across the state are busy coordinating how the vaccine will be distributed. Stearns County Human Services Administrator Renee Froundine says they will target high-risk groups first.
Pregnant women are 4 times more likely to have complications with H1N1 than a non-pregnant individual who gets H1N1. Caretakers are people that live with individuals that are less than 6 months of age. Individuals under the age of 6 months are not eligible to receive the vaccine, so we want those individuals to be protected.
Froundine says her department has also been busy meeting with area schools and clinics to work out details in getting school children vaccinated for the H1N1 virus. And the National Weather Service has issued a freeze warning over much of the western half of the state this evening. A flood damaged cars like a ticking time bomb. Airbags don't work and the car's electrical systems are rusting away. Avoid these waterlogged wrecks. Make sure you see a free Carfax vehicle history report. Just say, "Show me the Carfax," or go to Carfax.com. With AM 950 KTNF News, I'm Al Verdi.
Here's the latest look at traffic brought to you by Dex. Southbound 35W just before 3rd Street. We got an accident with the left 2 lanes blocked. I expect slowdowns across the River Bridge to the crosstown as well. 394 eastbound at Park Place Boulevard, an accident on the right shoulder. You're backed up to Winnetka through there. And still looking at a crash northbound 494 at 394 left shoulder there. Delays to Minnetonka Boulevard. Find everything local every which way in the book at DexKnows.com and on your mobile at m.dexknows.com. With Dex, you always have the local info you need where and when you need it. Dex knows.
It's the long play version of Quick on the Uptake today. It is 26 minutes in front of 6 o'clock. Minnesota Matters coming up at 6:05 today. The big political news, as you heard at the bottom of the hour, Chris Coleman, Mayor Chris Coleman of St. Paul, has decided that he is not going to be seeking the DFL nomination for governor and will not be running for governor. We have the pleasure of having the mayor on the line with us right now. Mayor Chris Coleman, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you and good evening.
Good evening, sir. This is a decision that you apparently just reached recently, correct?
Well, one of the things that we had said is we wanted to make a decision before the November election so that the voters in St. Paul, as I was seeking re-election, knew exactly what my intentions were. And so as we came closer to that, I weighed the challenges that we faced and the opportunities that we have in the city of St. Paul, and decided that I needed to focus my attention on what's happening in St. Paul.
There's a lot on your plate there.
Well, we do have some great things going on, but still some hurdles to clear. The Central Corridor Light Rail Line, which has been #1 priority for me for a long time, has still some work to do on it, and I would hate to think that somehow that project wouldn't move forward because I was out, running for governor, and there just simply was no way for me to effectively do both.
Okay. Well, let me just ask what the reaction was you got out on the campaign trail when you were testing the waters for running for governor. What were people telling you?
Well, really, really positive, and I think that's been, part of the struggle in my decision is because as I called through, folks that were regular convention attendees or, key members of the labor community or, just whatever it may be, there was very, very supportive words and encouragement for me to run, and in almost everyone that I talked to, they felt that I was, if I wasn't their automatic first choice, I was in their top 2 or 3, and that's all you can really ask for at this stage of the game. And so, felt that I had as good of a shot as I was ever going to have to do that. But I just I made a commitment 4 years ago to the voters of St. Paul, and I'm asking them to make a commitment to me again, and felt that was more important at this point.
You said this is you thought this was the best shot you might have to do something like this. Does this mean that you're not going to be seeking the governor's office in the future, or is that very hard to say at this point?
No, I'm not. I don't preclude anything. I didn't expect to be running for governor in 2005, or I didn't expect to be running for mayor in 2005. But felt very passionately that the city needed to go in a different direction, and so I chose to run at that point. And so, what the future holds, I guess, only time will tell.
Well, that, of course, then begs the question. Everything is politics. The DFL is a very political group. There are a lot of people vying for the DFL endorsement for governor. Have you decided if you are going to back anyone, or is that, again, too early to say?
Well, I'll be backing the endorsed candidate of the DFL party. I think we need to unify around the convention in April and put forth a candidate that can win in the fall. And I think the longer we spend our time shooting at each other, the harder that's going to be. But I think it's very clear that any of the candidates that are running on the DFL side are marked improvements from the Republican side. I didn't know that there were 9 people in the state of Minnesota that didn't understand the serious nature of climate change, and they all seem to be running for governor.
I think there are more than that who don't understand climate change, but yes, they do all seem to be running for governor. I do have to ask, though, you have had a chance to test the waters, you've had a chance to hear the voters, you've heard, you've talked to the people who would very likely be the delegates to any kind of convention. What do you think they're looking for in a candidate? I mean, we said we're not going to name names here, but what qualities do you think they want?
Well, I think that first and foremost, they want to win. You have 20 years since the last Democratic governor was serving in the corner office of the Capitol, and so people are very, very hungry to have someone that can unify the party, unify progressives and labor, and put that winning coalition together and win in the fall. But then, beyond the victory, that's when the work begins. So, who can get beyond the rhetoric and the partisanship that you sometimes see up at the Capitol? Who can make some of the tough decisions? Who is really going to balance out the fact that you've got a potential $7 billion budget deficit in the city of St. Paul? In the state of Minnesota. And there's going to be some really tough choices that are going to have to be made in order to get out of that. And are people going to have a seat at the table when those decisions are being made? I think that's one of the things that we've been very, very proud of in St. Paul was that we brought our public employees to the table to help us work out some of the challenges. We brought community groups to the table. People demand that process. They want to be a part of that decision making, and so they're looking for a candidate that understands that.
Well, let's talk about then the issues that you're facing here in St. Paul. You have got, which is the reason that you're not going to run. You got to focus on what's in front of you. Light rail, you said, is one of the bigger issues. I listened to part of the debate the other night where your opponent was saying it's all too expensive, and we should. In fact, I think she even suggested that we should run things underground, which would make it even more expensive. Where do things sit here with light rail?
Well, first of all, after 30 years of discussion, we're very, very close to officially moving forward. We've actually begun some of the construction on some key components in downtown, and it's very exciting. But there are some hurdles. There are some issues that need to be worked out with respect to the mitigation at the University of Minnesota. That is, at this point is probably the largest impediment to getting funding from the federal government. The second piece of it is the challenges of making sure that the business community that exists along University Avenue is protected, and that the steps that we take enhance the quality of the businesses, don't detract from that. So some challenges and some hurdles that need to be overcome, but it's an incredible opportunity, and it only gets more expensive the longer you wait. So any suggestion that St. Paul is not ready for first-class transportation network just misses the point.
I have one question about light rail, and I think your opponent raised it the other night, which is we have a set of rails just to the north of the corridor that we're going to be running the light rail on University Avenue. Is anybody seriously looking at that corridor instead of taking University Avenue, and if not, why not?
Well, there's been 30 years of looking at various options. We've looked at in the past Burlington Northern Pierce Butler alignment, which is, I think, what the reference was to.
Right.
We looked at the 94 Avenue corridor, and when you're making those decisions, there's a couple of factors that are critical. First of all, what's the ridership going to be? It doesn't help you to have a line going through a place where no one lives and no one can live, and so the Pierce Butler or the Burlington Northern corridor really wouldn't serve very many folks. And the 94 corridor really doesn't have the ability to impact economic development and other opportunities like the University Avenue alignment. So this is really, everyone can second guess, but 30 years of studying and discussion about the alignment of this line, I think, have made it very clear that the University Avenue alignment is the best way to go.
Okay. And one last question here about the governor's race before we let you go. Do you have any words of advice to the remaining candidates in the DFL race on what they should do?
Well, listen, the one thing that I've had an opportunity to do is to get to know even better the folks that are running and considering running. I have tremendous respect for them, and at the end of the day, they've just got to run hard, and they've got to give their all. They've got to give 110% to this thing, because you can't. It doesn't do any good to do it 90% of the way. You've got to do it 100% of the way, and you've got to be able to unify folks at the end of the day. So I would hope that people would go fight hard for the endorsement, and at the end of the day, honor that process. The DFLers, sometimes we like to get in circular firing squads, and I think that would be a tremendous mistake, because the state can't afford another 4 years of the philosophy that's governed it for the last 8.
It's been a train wreck so far, so I certainly agree with you. Mayor Chris Coleman, thank you so much for joining us today on a very, very busy day for you, and spending some time with our listeners talking about your decision.
Always appreciate it, and keep on your good work.
Okay, thank you. That is Mayor Chris Coleman, who again today announced that he is he is one of the few people who is not running for governor on the DFL side, and is instead going to focus on the city. Somebody who keeps track of what's going on in the DFL, because she is she's a worker in the DFL. Somebody who keeps track of the governor's race is Grace Kelly, who is one of our citizen journalists, and we've asked her to join us today to kind of give us her analysis of what this does to the race. Grace, are you there?
Hello, Mike.
Hello. Say, what does this all mean? Who's going to benefit by Chris Coleman pulling out of this race?
Well, because he never actually entered the race, I don't know that I could say who benefits so much, because I think it was actually rather savvy of Chris Coleman to always appear to be in the race, whether or not he was actually going to go, because he was gaining, statewide presence, and people were getting to know him, and I think he gained a lot of positive credibility. And in this age where it's really hard to get any press coverage, being considered for a possible governor candidate is just a smart move. So I don't think he was actually into the race, but just the discussion of him entering the race was very good for him. And there are so many candidates that they're all jockeying that I cannot see that anybody particularly has an advantage. I think maybe the voter has an advantage because they have to remember one last name.
Okay. Well, Coleman, though, was a name that people could remember, although maybe because of another Coleman, not so much because of the mayor of St. Paul. So, That may have caused some confusion for some people, and there were some people who were kind of looking forward to perhaps a Coleman versus Coleman race in the fall eventually, because the wisdom is on the Republican side that Norm Coleman's going to step in and run for governor.
I think that would be fantastic, a Coleman versus Coleman race. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it did, it would be really great. No, there has been Coleman confusion. If you look at the Chris Coleman signs, it doesn't just say Coleman on them. It has in great big letters Chris, because which Coleman is very, very important. And you know, it is unfortunate when someone takes your name branding and kind of messes with it. Maybe he could sue Norm Coleman.
I don't know if he could do that. I think Norm has had the name longer, is my guess. I'm not sure. one of those first rights things. So now the DFL does not get around to endorsing somebody for governor for quite some time, correct?
April 23rd. It's a long time away. Although the precinct caucuses, which are happening February 3rd, just months away, are when most of those decisions are being made, because it's a matter of every mayor getting out their people to those precinct caucuses, and it's the numbers in the precinct caucuses that are going to determine what happens in April. So, yep, January is going to be a month where if you've ever gone to a convention, or you've ever considered going to a convention, or you even hint that you might go to a convention, you will get a call.
Well, Grace Kelly, thank you so much. We're going to take a break, and Kelly, please hang on the line, because I want to pick up this conversation and talk more about where this is all going. Listen to Quick on the Uptake. I'm Mike McEntee. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Are you tired of living with pain? Or have you given up and figure it's just part of life? There is an option you've probably never heard of. A non-invasive, non-surgical, no-drug therapy that can end your pain for good. And with a 90% success rate, it's easy to see why more and more people are discovering advanced biomedical technologies. Ordinary people with extraordinary results.
I used to suffer from neck pain that made it almost impossible to fall asleep. I thought it was something I just had to live with. I tried pain meds and massage, but the pain never really went away. Then I tried ABT, and the pain hasn't come back. My neck feels great, and I can finally sleep at night.
The pain stops here. For a free consultation, call 1-800-777-7170. 800-777-7170. Located in Eagan, Minnesota, ABT offers proven pain relief. Find out more at advbiomed.com.
This will give you hope in your life where you can live pain-free.
Did you know that the largest living space in a typical home goes unfinished? Most homeowners don't realize the potential living space that can be unlocked in their front and backyard. Your landscape can be a place for fun and relaxation, not just mowing. Call C&L Outdoor Design and Landscapes to find out how you can create a beautiful outdoor space to enjoy. Call 612-282-5464. Mention AM 950 and receive a free on-site consultation and a $100 discount on a full landscape design. Visit cloutdoor.com.
We've all seen our investments and savings lose value in these tough economic times. Hi, I'm Jay Johnson, 36th Director of the U.S. Mint. I supervised our nation's gold supply, and I'm often asked why I buy gold. I buy gold because it helps protect against inflation and huge government spending. And gold is a safe haven asset that has never dropped to zero. In fact, gold has tripled since 2001. Some experts believe gold may be on its way to new record highs. Make gold a part of your portfolio. Call Goldline, a company with nearly $500 million in annual sales. As a former director of the U.S. Mint, I chose Goldline as a client because Goldline has been helping people acquire gold for nearly 50 years. Call Goldline at 800-556-GOLD to receive your free Gold Investors Kit, including important risk information about acquiring precious metals. Call 800-556-GOLD. 800-556-GOLD. Call now, 800-556-4653.
Here's the latest look at traffic brought to you by Toyota Parts and Service. Southbound 35W just before 3rd Street. They got an accident with the left 2 lanes shut down. That area really backing down up. There's still an accident southbound at Franklin as well. 35 southbound at the Forest Lake Split. Looking at a crash from earlier. That's off to the side. And northbound 494 still got a crash sitting on the left shoulder at 394. Toyota owners through October. Visit your participating Toyota dealer for great tire specials this fall. Buy 3 tires, get the 4th one for just $1. Toyota's quality saves you money.
Ten minutes in front of 6 o'clock. We're talking with Grace Kelly of the UpTake and of the Minnesota Progressive Project at mnprogressiveproject.org about today's, I wouldn't call it a bombshell, but at least an announcement politically that Mayor of St. Paul, Chris Coleman, is not going to be seeking to run for governor. And maybe that's a surprise to some people, and maybe not. Kelly, were you surprised by his decision?
Oh, actually, I was quite surprised because he's been accumulating this awesome staff that we were all looking at and saying, wow, those people rock. They could run a governor's race. And so just by the staff that he has underneath him, we were certain that he was going to run.
Now, I picked up on something last night, or it was a couple nights ago. There was a debate. I know you didn't get to it, but we carried it live on the UpTake. And I want to play you something where he talked about why he wants to be mayor. And I detected then that he may have decided at that point that he was really going to run for mayor instead of governor. Here, take a listen.
Over the last 4 years has really been kind of surprising to me in some ways. And the most surprising aspect of it is what you can do for people that you meet. What you can do for an individual who just needs some assistance and a little direction to figure out how they can avoid a foreclosure. What you can do when you go to a high school to proclaim a day for a young girl struggling with cancer. What you can do to a young boy or for a young boy where he's at a crossroads in his life. The best example of that was a couple of years ago. I was coming out of my office, and as I was walking through the entranceway, there was a young man standing with his father. And that young man had been told to go home that day from school because he had gotten in a fight. And his dad took him around to different places in the city where kids were hanging out and they were up to no good. And then he brought him down to the mayor's office. He was trying to convey to his son there were two paths that he could choose. So I brought the child into the office. I had him sit in the mayor's seat. I had him start talking about what it would be like to be mayor. And at the end of that visit, that child walked away, clearly understanding that he had a better option than the one that he had been choosing. You can have a tremendous impact as mayor of the city of St. Paul. I think that I have. But sometimes it's the impact that you don't see that's the most important. I've been proud to be mayor of the city. I ask for your support.
Okay, that was, of course, last night. Not last night, a couple nights ago. Kelly, do you think that earnestly that might be the reason why he's pulled out, or do you think that there may be other reasons, such as that people were still upset with him over what happened with the Republican National Convention?
Oh, I don't think the Republican National Convention has any impact except for people locally here in the city of St. Paul. Even people in a neighboring suburb have said, that's old news. That happened a year ago. You know, I mean, only St. Paul matters, and I can't see it affecting the mayor's race, and so I don't think it had any impact whatsoever. He does wax rather nostalgic about St. Paul. I mean, to people who don't live in St. Paul, I don't think they realize how much we in St. Paul really appreciate relationships and living here and the kind of things that happen. This is a very close-knit community with a lot of relationships, even at the city level. It isn't the, fighting, rip your throat out sort of stuff that other cities have, and I think that that there is a sense that being here and doing this is about the best there is because we think our city's grand. I mean, sorry, Minneapolis, but that's how St. Paulites feel.
Now, I have to think back. Does St. Paul have a history of having multiple-term mayors, or do things tend to flip like every 4 or 8 years?
I'm trying to go through the history, and there's at least 2-term mayors, and I think there's even longer. I think it's really up to the mayors and the populace. Usually something has to happen for St. Paul to dump anyone, and St. Paul's pretty forgiving as long as you're really trying to do a good job and overall doing a good job. A mistake or two usually doesn't dump a mayor.
And I got to think back to my youth. George Latimer, I think he was at least 2, if not 3 terms. I'd have to check that.
Yes. Well, we've had very interesting mayors. We've had mayors who chase after police cars, and we've had characters of all sorts. St. Paul's history gets rather dramatic.
Well, going forward here with the governor's race, you said you don't think anybody's going to pick up the support from Chris Coleman, or that his support naturally goes to somebody because he wasn't officially running for anything yet. Who do you see right now? Is there a front runner amongst the DFL? There's been no straw poll as the Republicans had recently with Marty Seifert. What are the party folks looking at? Do they think anybody has a nose ahead of somebody else, or is it still everybody is kind of in a big pack and nobody can decide yet?
Well, the most interesting thing is I was at the Vento dinner and I was asking the people who are normally the decision makers. And what I was hearing again and again is we want to see how people are going to campaign. How effectively can they control the message? Can they handle, this kind of high-stress campaign? Can they thrive in the worst of conditions? It was no longer about issues. I mean, that was kind of the surprising thing, is I think that overall the TFL is happy with where most of its folks are on issues. So there's no single issue except maybe health care that pops to the top.
So it sounds...
And everyone knows it's going to be a bad budget year. So it's like, who can really handle this? Who can make this campaign really work?
It sounds like you're echoing exactly what Chris Coleman told us. His piece of advice to whoever is running is that, pick somebody who's going to win. Pick somebody who is going to be able to navigate the minefield of a campaign and make it to the finish line. And it sounds like that maybe the DFL has wised up, and that's what they're going to do.
Well, yes, our collective wisdom, I think we'll get there.
All right. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us and providing us your insight as a party insider a little bit, but also as somebody who's a citizen journalist covering all this stuff for us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. That's Grace Kelly. You can find her at Minnesota Progressive Project or at the UpTake.org. A quick note here. We have Minnesota Matters coming up here very soon. Greg Huff has bloggers Jack Clark and Brian Feldine with him for the hour tonight, as well as another episode of Housewives of Bachman County. I will have to stay tuned for that, and you will too. So that's all coming up on Minnesota Matters here at 6:05. A reminder here that at we are the UpTake, the UpTake.org. We are a citizen journalism organization. We invite you to get involved. Go to the UpTake.org and look at the events that we've kind of designated as interesting to cover this week. And if you are interested, you can drop us an email at info@theuptake.org, and we'll be glad to help you figure out how to cover those things, because as you've seen, corporate journalism just doesn't cut it anymore these days. You got to take matters into your own hands and be the media. That's it for today's show. Mom, thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock.